had to do with Content ID, which we've talked about, because every time I make a beat and there's a Splice sample, I can bet I'm getting a copyright claim against me on YouTube, which violates the royalty-free nature. What's going down? It's the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast. My name is DJ Payne One. I'm joined by Aaron Knight and Dame Ritter. Today's a very serious episode. Dame has a special message to everybody out there. I'll just step away from the mic for a minute and let you address what you need to address.
I do. What's my special message? I don't have a special.
I thought you were going to address people with sugar addiction. I was looking forward to that because I suffered from that, especially during the holidays when I just want to binge on cookies.
Yeah, it's way too many treats. My wife's sisters are great bakers, but way too many. They always, especially, Thanksgiving, my birthday, Christmas, New Year's, like way too many treats at the end of the year are around, and it's just ridiculous. So
that's why I joined the gym, because of something that happened at a holiday party.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I mean, obviously, I didn't know that's what we were talking about, but that is true. There's way too many treats around. They're good. They're very good. But yeah, I gotta hit the gym. I'm hitting the gym today, and tomorrow, and then probably every day in 2023, as long as my old knees can hold up.
And that is our official stance as the MEC. There are too many treats. How are you feeling, Aaron?
I feel great. It's funny that we're talking about this because I tweeted that I was mad that I accidentally left all my snacks and treats at my parents' house. And I didn't realize it till I was like unloading my bags at home. And I'm like, damn, I didn't bring any of the treats home. But then I went to the gym and my trainer was like, you had a good Christmas, didn't you? And I was like, whoa. I was here on Friday and Monday with you. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I was there. I just had Saturday and Sunday, but him saying that because I was so exhausted during the workout, I was like, damn, I guess I was supposed to leave those treats. So I'm with y'all. We're going to be fit and focused in 2023.
Yeah.
We survived the worst of it.
Yeah. So Christmas in the morning, we go over to my wife's family's house, and it's like every year she makes like this French toast casserole. I didn't even think that was a thing. I don't until I met them, but
sounds fire.
That starts the morning off terribly unhealthy. My mom's house is more healthy. It's vegan, but like there's still desserts. So there was a sweet potato pie and I think a vegan sweet potato. Not that it matters. There's still hella sugar and apple pie. And then like go to my dad's house, and his wife typically has like monkey bread. Ridiculously good, but still. So the whole day is just probably 500 grams of sugar. But
yeah, anyway, you think, it's fine. And then, Monday comes around and you jump on the treadmill and I spent the day eating on Saturday or Sunday and Saturday. What am I talking about? And then I jump on the treadmill on Sunday evening. I can't do that to myself again.
I started doing the stair climber too. It's a different type of tired when you hit that. But anyway, what are we talking about today? Not that people want to hear us talk about sweets.
I don't. That was triggering, but I just want to quick because this is a follow up and it's an update. I don't think it requires much conversation. There was and a couple of people sent this to me. I also got the email because I'm a Splice user myself. But Splice has a new CEO as of several months ago, and they made a statement. And part of that statement, it was just kind of like wrapping up the year. But part of the Splice's CEO's statement had to do with Content ID, which we've talked about, because every time I make a beat and there's a Splice sample, I can bet I'm getting a copyright claim against me on YouTube, which obviously violates the royalty-free nature of Splice's non-exclusive agreements. This is what the statement says. We are working on another update that will allow Splice users to automatically generate a certified license for every sound downloaded. We have found that when Splice users provide this documentation to third-party streaming services and or distributors, they are less likely to receive copyright claims or have issues with copyright monitoring systems like Content ID, an industry-wide issue facing all creators and users of non-exclusive samples. And then it says, just a reminder that Splice samples are 100% royalty free, even for commercial use. Now, I just have 3 quick things to say. One, it's not just affecting people using Splice samples or other samples. Anytime I speak about this, I have tons of people contacting me saying, hey, I was making an original song with my guitar, or I was making an original beat with my keyboard and I got copyright claimed. So it's happening to everybody because the Content ID system is trash, and they're making billions of dollars off of it, and it's affecting us in terrible ways. So that's number one. Number two, great that Splice is implementing these features, but what a time when it's necessary for individual licenses to be generated for a subscription, non-exclusive, royalty-free sample service. And then lastly, the fact that the CEO has to say, just a reminder that Splice samples are 100% royalty-free, even for commercial use. It shows you that people don't know what the hell is going on. And again, also, when I talk about this stuff, there are a lot of people saying, well, what do you expect? It's a sample. You can't sample and get away with it. Like, royalty-free has been around for so long. So I think, it's a perfect storm of, you have this restrictive technology created by corporations that could care less if artists starve or thrive, because they're making money off their system. And then you have Splice that streamlines and creates this hub for royalty-free samples. But there are so many users, and it goes back to what I will always say, which isn't the most optimistic statement, but the vast majority of people in the music business don't understand the music business to the point where they will sign up to Splice and not understand what it is. Don't get me started on people who sign up for a PRO and are like, oh yeah, that's my copyright protection. There's just so much ignorance out there. But I think, call for Splice to respond several times. They've responded. Again, I don't know what I was expecting other than a class action lawsuit, which was what I was hoping for, that Splice and like Cymatics and a whole bunch of other entities with money that are affected just got together and they're like, no, we're not taking this anymore. Maybe that's coming soon. I don't know, but I know Content ID, there are lawsuits against Content ID. I just hoped more companies would jump on it, especially ones that I use. So that's that update.
I don't have anything to say, but I'm with you. I don't think it's going to happen because I feel like they're all going to end up reaching an agreement. But like, companies like Splice aren't super affected. Like, it's more of the copyright holders who are affected by it. And Splice being a royalty-free company, it's like,
yeah,
they'll say something because people are ignorant and probably consistently tagging them or consistently saying stuff around it. But even to the specificity that you're talking about, Content ID, somebody will complain and you'll be like, well, but that's not what it does. And then, you know what I'm saying? And then it just kind of erases the whole complaint and the whole system. So I don't know. I think things like this are very difficult. I do feel like this is a place where Web3 and blockchain are going to be really beneficial. But I know that we're still going to be existing mostly in Web2 for so long. And even things like YouTube and things like that are going to be difficult. Whereas why I think that Brandon Torrey's situation is going to be helpful with that too. Like, having his company more as like the aggregator and distributor, where it's like you're setting up your own things. And if somebody violates that on the front end with a company like YouTube, you on the back end are protected. But I think that's like, things like this are actually going to move people like you over to that quicker, I think.
Yeah, I think if Splice is looking at their user base and suddenly it shrinks, then they're going to have to act. So at this point, it must not be, there must not be an exodus.
Yeah, I look forward to having Brandon back on the MEC at some point. But I tried it out. I still feel like it's too, like, feels too Web3. Like, I feel like Web3 needs to feel Web2 for more people to embrace it. Like, when I log in and I see, like, wallet addresses and there's, a billion characters. I think that just turns, maybe that's just me, but I think it turns, I think it's going to turn, like the normal, at least the average user off right now from like mass adoption. So I think you need to disguise some of those. And maybe that's just me sounding stupid, but like I think we need to disguise some of those.
I 100% agree. That's what turned, like, getting on, it felt too daunting for me. And I was like, I'll just wait till somebody walks me through. And he reached out and he's like, let's talk. And I'm like, cool. If you walk me through it, I think we'll be cool. But I agree with that. But I think that may also be just the developmental stage he's at, because there's still technically in a version of beta or another version of beta. So it's like, I think as they grow their user base outside of the Web3 community, which I know is what they're trying to do in 2023, I think that they'll just have to put more money into UX.
Right. All right, let's talk about being slept on, and let's kick the conversation off with artists you guys think are slept on and why. Who slept on, Aaron? Who's being slept on in?
So I think you and I share very similar opinions. I don't actually believe there's such thing as slept on. I think there are underrated people, but I don't think that there is such thing as being slept on. Do you know what I'm saying? Because if somebody is sleeping on you, it is your responsibility to wake them up. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like if you are asleep in your house and your house catches on fire, the fire alarm is responsible for helping you wake up. But if you don't change the batteries in the fire alarm and you don't wake up until you're coughing from the smoke, that's on you. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think there are a lot of underrated people, but slept on is a matter of marketing. And so I will give real world example. Our artist, Xavier Omar. Every time I mention his name in any industry room, I've never represented an artist like this, I get overwhelming love and praise, right? So that told my business partner and I that it's more of a conversation with his fan base that we need to be having, because the gatekeepers love us. We are experiencing open doors in places that we never knew we had grace because so many people like him. But he's sitting at just over 1 million monthly listeners, which is not bad, right? But considering that I have artists sitting at 700, 800,000 monthly listeners, and I'm constantly doing intros and telling why they're valuable, and he's just a couple 300,000 more high than them. That to me is like, I'm talking about like everybody. He was just on Barack Obama's playlist. You know what I'm saying? Like, and there's big artists on that one. So for us, we decided that we need to go back to his grassroots and create a cult following. So in November, we did a show in Austin. December, we did a show in Dallas. We just started managing him. He sold out both of those events, right? And then we started selling merch. It's going crazy. So we're like, he just had untapped potential that was on him and his old management. Now it's on us. Untapped potential doesn't mean that he's slept on. It means that our alarm isn't firing loud enough. So that's all we're doing, is we're creating a ton of micro experiences all over the US to sound the alarm louder, but then also produce content to prove to people that he's way bigger than you think he is, right? So as soon as we started posting the social proof, the videos of everything, now we're getting, I'm talking about, I had his email for a month and it was dry. And then we started posting videos of our events and like nonstop, hey, we're a big fan, we're a big fan, we're a big fan. So again, I don't believe anybody is actually slept on. If you are allowing that to be an excuse, that means that you are expecting other people to open a door for you that you should be producing the keys to. And I'm not saying that people don't have, like some people may have access in easier ways. Some people may know this person, so it opens up this door. Some people may get these looks from Spotify. But the truth of the matter is, whoever you are and whatever ability ability that you have, whatever fan base that you have, you should be working to speak their language and to make them your alarms so nobody is sleeping on you. So I think there are underrated people. I will say that. I think that there are really talented people who don't get as much love as less talented people because they're louder or they're more interesting or they're more charismatic. But I don't really believe in slept on. If they're slept on, it's on you.
Yeah, I gotta check out Xavier. I keep hearing his name in different. I've never listened to his music. Sorry, but I will listen to it today because
he makes respectful R&B music, which is why it's like everybody really likes him because he makes R&B music for women. Really.
Well, not that I'm a woman, but I that sounds like something that I would personally be into because it sounds like somebody I would be a fan of. Payne, do you feel similarly? And is there an artist that you feel is either slept on or just underrated that you would like to give a little bit more shot? Not that our podcast is going to blast them to stardom, but is there an artist that you see moving that you think needs more exposure because they're that talented?
My thing is, I could name a ton of artists who I think are incredibly talented and who are at, maybe a level of low exposure simply because they just started or they haven't done enough. I mean, I know tons of talented artists. I don't think they're necessarily overrated or underrated. The way I can judge a person, an artist, I guess, rating from the public, because, it's coming from an artist being part of certain conversations, is if they have the same resources and they're put on the same stages as other artists. Like, for example, AZ versus Nas, they had very similar platforms coming up. Why Nas became the bigger star, I don't know. I like AZ. I think he's super talented. I think, they should both be part of the conversation, but a lot of people forget AZ. But then again, I wasn't around, I was a kid when all that was going on. Not that neither of them are still making music, but Nas is still winning Grammys. AZ is still putting out good music. He's just not a part of the same conversation. I don't know. Someone explain that to me because I don't know what's happening. But also, I know I'm not privy to certain conversations. I don't know if management made missteps, if bridges were burned. I have no idea.
Well, I think during that time it was just a different game, right? Like, I think now what we're saying that I think maybe it was possible to be slept on back then because you needed, certain gatekeepers to open up the gate in order for you to be on the scene. Now, given that we have so much control over our voice and our platform, I think that's a big reason why, at least I believe, that you can't really be slept on. The artist that I would like to show love to that I'm a fan of is Rex Life Raj. I mean, I can kind of see why he's not bigger than he is, going back to some of Aaron's points, but I think he makes amazing music. I think he's one of these artists. In artists, I look for consistency. Like, is there a consistent quality of song every time? And I would put somebody like Rex Life Raj. I would put Blast. I would put Russ. There's a lot of artists. I'm sorry, I didn't. You can chime in for the women, Aaron, because I'm sure there's a lot of women like Thames. Even though I don't listen to her music, like, I can tell, like, every time it's like, and I haven't listened to the SZA album, so I'm sure she fits in this category as well. From what I'm hearing, like, that's what I look for. Even when I was running Funk Volume, was like, is there a consistency in the quality of the song? Can they hit it at least a double every time? I'm not saying every song has to be a grand slam, but like, that lets me know that they've fine-tuned their skill set. And they have something. And I think that's different because most artists, I don't hear that from. Most artists, I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then it's like, like, this one fell off. But Rex Life Raj to me is a cat that, I can kind of see from afar because he's not a very loud person. He seems like he's pretty low key. He's active on social media, but there's nothing like rah that would bring attention. Like there's nothing that would go viral. There's no interesting viewpoint that's like, oh, that people can kind of go back and forth on. There's no polarizing statements, nothing. It's just consistent good music. So, underrated. I would put him in an underrated category for me. But I still wouldn't say that he was slept on.
I fully agree with that. I love Rex Life Raj. I feel like, and I don't know if you know much of his story, but as a fan, like hearing about the deaths he's experienced and just like year after year, the heartache, and then he's being really vulnerable about that. I think that's what's happening in R&B right now, which is why I could understand why Tony would say everybody's being slept on or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying?
Let's discount what he was saying, because I think he came back and said that he was doing that just to like get people going. He was like, oh, I saw a tweet from him that said, oh, I keep saying people are slept on just to see people go back and forth or something.
Okay, lame. I don't like that, but all right.
something kind of lame. But yeah, but I did see. I
get it. He has a platform where he's supposed to be generating interest for artists. So shout out to him for figuring that out. I just thought he may have actually meant that, and I'm like, yeah, okay, got you.
Yeah, because he even put out a tweet that said something like Mariah Carey is slept on or something like that's a joke. As I'm assuming that's his version of a joke. But yeah, so what I think a lot of independent artists don't understand is like most indie art, if you stay independent, you're going to hit a wall. At some point, you might hit many walls. You're going to hit many walls. But there's that one wall when you get to like a very successful stage, because you've pretty much reached all of like the passionate music fans in your lane. Right. You like the people that are out there looking for music, trying to find new artists, like you've reached all of those people. And in order to kind of keep growing in numbers, you're probably going to have to find the more passive listening folks. Right. So you're going to have to work with whether it's a label or bigger brands or something like that. In order to keep like excelling, you're going to have to start touching some of these people that don't really seek music like that. They're not trying to put together their own R&B playlists. They're not, they just hear music in films when they turn on the radio, like bigger playlists, things like that. And I think that's when a lot of indie artists gets really frustrated because they don't know how to penetrate that wall. And that's when, honestly, a lot of them just end up signing the labels because they're like, shit, I don't know what to do. Have you guys seen, Aaron, I see you shaking your head. So I'm assuming you've seen that. And I think that's what the issue is like that moment where you've kind of reached all of the passionate super fans in your niche, in your lane, and you don't know how to bust through that.
Yeah, I definitely am seeing that. And again, going back to R&B, just because that's where we're spending most of our time right now. R&B is a genre of fans made up largely of a black audience, which is something that people aren't discussing right now. So if Black people only make up about 12% of America, you going out and doing 400, 500, even 1,000 cap venues is attainable. But once you're trying to break past that, you have to have a wider audience base. And so that's something, even when we're looking at the numbers with Xavier, we're like, okay, this is why we can walk into a room full of curators and everybody knows who he is, but we're not seeing crazy numbers because we're looking at something like 68% of his audience is Black, which is unheard of because when I'm in hip hop, even though it's considered a Black genre, like hip hop is like mostly white kids, mostly like high school and college white kids listening to it, turning up to it, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like markets like Atlanta, Memphis, whatever is mostly Black people. But when you get out, it's like overwhelmingly. So yeah, I think that people hit this pinnacle, especially in subgenres of music. And then they're like, okay, well, the label must be able to solve my problem. And I would encourage artists, dive back into your numbers and figure out your fan base. A lot of times you need a unique market offering. And I think that's what a lot of artists are missing, especially artists who aren't polarizing. So people like Rex Life Raj is like, well, I'm not going to start doing X, Y, and Z for attention. He may not be a gamer, so Twitch or Discord may not be like what he's trying to do. So then it's like, what's the next step? That's why I've moved into experiences. I think every artist should be throwing unique experiences to capture their fan base and figure out what they really want, real-time feedback from real people, and then you can mass create that on the internet. So if you're trying to just follow a trend of let me post, and you don't know who you're posting to, then it's not really going to grow. But I've seen a lot of people, like you said, sign recently in the last few years, and they just aren't getting even from the label what they were expecting, because the label will throw them on some playlist. You'll see a couple of songs shoot up. And then after that, it's like, okay, what are we really getting? Another example is Xavier. Shout out to his label. I'm not going to say anything, but he's no longer on his label. He left because his A&R went over to Def Jam and most of the team left. And he was like, hey, I don't want to be here if I'm already not feeling super supported. And now everybody who was working with me, we're seeing more success, higher streams when he went to a distributor, because again, we're just going back to his fan base. So I think that it's important for artists to feel like if you feel that angst, I think it's time for you to dig deeper instead of going wider, because all you're going to do is give up control on something that they probably don't have an understanding of either. You may need to network your way into some other circles to work with other people who have a bigger following, but I don't know if the label necessarily, if you have a solid following, when you hit that brick wall, I think it's time to study.
Yeah, I would also, propaganda was never on our podcast, but I talked about them. Create other entry points to your world, right? Like propaganda. He put out a line, a coffee line, a beer line, started a podcast. He does public speaking, but it's all like he's still telling his story. It's just how you enter his world. Maybe a beer drinker never becomes a fan of his music, but it could be possible that they will. So, if you create more entry points to your world, make your world larger, make your world more interesting for somebody to peek in the door and be like, oh, okay, I kind of like this Hood Politics podcast. The Hood Politics podcast probably has an intro that is his music. You start getting used to that intro, that music, maybe you might want to check out his music. So I think that's another option that I always point to propaganda as somebody's done it very well, but a lot of artists do it. A lot of artists get into other things. So yeah, but that wall is real though, because I've seen a lot of artists get super frustrated when they hit it and they don't know what to do. They start doing weird stuff. And you start seeing them like do stupid dances on TikTok. I'm like, but that's not you. You never would have done it. Like you would have told me that was hella corny 2 years ago. Now you're out here trying to start up a dance trend on TikTok. Like, all right. But yeah, so I think we all agree no artist is really being slept on, definitely underrated. But figure it out. I mean, we have so many tools at our disposal these days, so much access to information and to data. We just need to be a little bit more creative, maybe a little bit more patient with how we move. And, hopefully you can pick up that traction again.
And even I just want to say about being underrated, it could mean a lot of things, and it's mostly just a feeling, not necessarily something with real consequences. Because there are artists who are rich, filthy rich, who are underrated. There are artists who have tons of fans who are underrated. There are artists with hit songs who are underrated. It's this just kind of arbitrary assignment we give people who we don't feel are a part of the conversation enough. Like right now, if you ask the current generation who the best rappers alive are, they're probably going to say Lil Baby or Kendrick or whoever. They're not going to include Jay-Z in the conversation. Boo hoo. Jay-Z has the biggest legacy out of any of them. So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I mean, especially at the year's end when these lists come out, I think La Russell made a comment about it because, top 10 lists. I think, who is it that has the one that people cares about? Is it B Dot? He seems to have a voice for some reason. People care about his list.
It's been a lot of lists coming out. I think he was just talking about all of them. But I feel like that's a salty statement to make, because if you were on them, you would be like,
yeah,
thank you everybody for voting. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get telling people not to put their full worth in a list, but don't say F the list. Because if you were on the list, you would be hyped. You would be like, yeah, they got it right. So it's like, it's almost disrespectful to the artist who did make it on the list to say something like that. Or it's like, I don't know, I get it, but I'm like, yo, it's like, if it's not that deep, then why are you upset?
Yeah, I'd probably leave it alone. If I was an artist and the list came out and I wasn't on it, I'd probably just leave it alone. Especially if you're doing well. Like, hey, that's the thing. It's like, look, if you opt to go independent, I would tell Hobson all the time, like, we built a table, we're eating well. Stop looking over at their table. Like, focus on our table. We can make it much bigger. We can create more tables, but stop looking over at their table, because that shouldn't bother us. They operate under a totally different set of rules and opinions. Like, I don't give a shit about their table. But a lot of artists, they be peeking. They be like, oh snap, look who's eating at that table. I want to sit next to them.
And just like that, Math Hoffa created more controversy because he made a top list of the top hip hop groups of all time. And I'm looking at it and someone's saying, so Mobb Deep isn't on there. And I'm like, Public Enemy isn't on there. So yeah, I'm just going to get off of that tweet and go to the, can we go to the knowledge?
All these publications, they love lists because they know, and I know that like even ESPN, when they have like their list, I'm sure there's somebody in the room that says, hey, we should put this person at number 6 because people are going to hate that. And they're going to go crazy when they see that. And there's going to be a lot of controversy. And like, it's not even their real list. It's their real list to spark controversy so that people will retweet it and complain and cry and argue. And that's really what these lists are meant for. Even Obama's like, I don't really think Obama listening to that music that he puts on his list. I mean, shout out to Xavier Omar for being on it.
My mom was like, yo, the president has such good taste. And I was like, Mom, I'm positive that this is like his intern. You know what I'm saying? His intern signed into his account, looked at some of the songs he had listened to, and then they were like, okay, here's some of the other top acts coming out. So considering that Xavier is small, my hope is that he actually does like this song, because it's like he doesn't benefit by putting us on the list, but maybe, you know what I'm saying? Or I don't know. I just was like, Mom, and the sequencing made no sense either. So it wasn't like a real playlist. It's just a bunch of, no disrespect to President Barack Obama, but I'm saying the playlist didn't make sense. So I'm with you. It's like, did bro really even pick these songs?
I mean, it's amazing to be on that. It's one of the best lists to be on as an artist, because people really actually look at it and be like, oh, who's on the list? But to me, it's not that you can't have a variety of music that you listen to, but like, I don't really know that many people that have like that range of songs that they listen to all the time.
I mean, but I agree with you.
That's not normal.
Right, because like, as we're going down the list, my mom was like, how do you know all these artists? I'm like, because I really listen to them. And the odds of him listening to them as his top tracks is so low. Even how young the ears have to be. You know what I'm saying? It's like he had Maggie Rogers and Omar Apollo on there. I'm like, come on. I can't see you listening to this regularly.
Right. Yeah. But shout out to everybody that's on that list. Definitely is a good look to be on that list. But yeah, man, lists are generated to just, for the most part, just cause a bit of controversy. Anyway, I know we got another topic.
Yeah, speaking of causing controversy, so producer Knxledge, who, I mean, I think a lot of people know him. He did. I don't know what the actual process of him getting on the Kendrick album was, but he's a Grammy award winning producer. Because I know I don't know. Producers will know. I don't think anyone else cares about the intricacies of the co-production thing. I don't know. But he recently caused a whole dumpster fire on Twitter to burn, because I guess he was uploading, and this has always been his thing. You know, he makes instrumentals and uploads them, and people were, you know, recording artists were taking them, rapping over them, which is going to happen. But then they were uploading them to the streaming services and claiming ownership of his beat and the song without his permission, obviously. So his tweet is all caps. I'm not going to scream it. He wrote, "Stop rapping / singing on my beats without my permission, then releasing them on streaming services. I'll keep deleting your songs / albums faster than they get heard. You're getting my own music created on my stream flagged. Stop disrespecting my work and time." So I imagine, and this happens all the time, like I license beats and suddenly all of my YouTube channel is being monetized by other people who didn't make the beats. I'm like, how? Wait, that's not. So I have to file all these claims. And a lot of times the distributors are like, yeah, you filed this claim and you articulated yourself well, but we're gonna maintain our claim. And then I've made videos about this. I have to go around YouTube and straight to the distributor and have a conversation with them, and it just takes a lot of time. With Knxledge, he's a Twitch streamer, and probably a YouTube streamer. I'm not sure, but I know these content ID platforms these content ID systems, I should say, affect all platforms. So if he's playing an original beat on his stream that someone else has monetized because they rapped over it and put it on to DistroKid, suddenly his stream is getting taken down. So that can actually really affect him, you know, in a serious way. But some of the responses to that are hilarious. Like the very top, I'm just scrolling down the replies. Will Pyramid says, "This guy's ignoring how much money someone else's disrespect can make." It's like,
we said what?
People don't know how the music business works. I guess in Will's head, you know, if someone randomly takes his beat and like it blows up and becomes a hit, with no regard for the guy's artistic integrity or his wishes, or the fact that his stream is actually being affected negatively by this guy just throws out this, and you hear this all the time when people are like, you know, let it get stolen, man, run it up. And it's like, that's really not how it works in 99.9% of all cases. So why entertain that? And, you know, I think it goes back to people just talking to hear themselves speak. The DJ Oblivion says, I mean, if you release an instrumental on the internet, you're basically giving it away, which, again, it's one of those statements where it's like, yeah, people feel that way, but that doesn't make it true. And then he continues to say, back in the day, we would drop a sample of our names being said every other line. I think he's describing beat tagging, and that didn't happen back in the day. That's happening right now. Back in the day, they didn't do that. They didn't. I know because I've lived longer than a decade, and I used to, you know, get maxi singles, and there were no tags on those instrumentals. So what are you talking about? There are some really funny ones.
There was another guy who said, I've spent 10 minutes trying to find a place to buy your beats and they're not available. And people were like, do you know who you're talking to? Like, do you just think Knxledge is going to be on BeatStars selling you a $25 beat? And then he was like, well, that's my point. If he wants to really make money off of these beats, he's got to stop putting them on YouTube. And they're like, the point isn't that he needs to make money off of these beats. He is making money. Y'all are prohibiting his money by stealing them and then tagging them. And then he can't do it because his stream, like Knxledge's stream, is making so much money. That alone, his stream's getting taken down is way more than
on
any
YouTube or Twitch.
Twitch. Or both, though. And that's the thing. It's like he keeps getting flagged on his own stream. And then also, like Payne said, people are uploading it to like things like YouTube or Spotify. So he's spending a ton of time and resources just flagging his beats because they're all over the internet right now. And then people are changing the name. It's just all the things.
Well, and one thing and this is kind of the end of what I have to say, other than this question that this whole situation begs, but somebody said maybe do a release for the artists that want to rap on your beats and stop gatekeeping mixtape culture. Now, I have a major problem with this statement because mixtape culture occurred before Content ID. So yeah, there was a moment when no one cared. Like people wanted their beats to get rapped over and thrown on mixtapes because mixtape culture truly was mixtape culture. Right now, there's no such thing as mixtape culture. It has become streaming, and all streaming is monetized, and all streaming exists within the context of these platforms that are monetized, that have Content ID, and that affect other platforms. So if Knxledge's main endeavor right now, aside from making beats, is Twitch streaming, and this practice is thwarting his efforts, then yeah, he's upset about that, and literally nothing anyone else says is relevant. But what is interesting is that apparently, and this was a Complex article from earlier this year, Knxledge got in trouble because he was remixing Meek Mill acapellas over beats. Now, I don't know if, and he samples a lot. I don't know if he's monetizing this stuff. If he is, then there are people who are saying, well, that's hypocritical. If he's not, then I'm still with him 100%.
Yeah, I was just looking at his. I've heard the name, but I'm not familiar with him as a producer. I'm just looking at his Twitch channel. Is definitely pretty active on there. Like I'm gonna start sounding like an old man, but like just the sense of entitlement that young people have today. They're just like, hey, this should be mine. Like you make something, and then somebody else comes in and says, hey, this should be mine. Like I should be able to take this. How come I can't take this? It's like, what? Like what? Like that's crazy. But as you see, there's a lot of people that have that perspective in response to that tweet. I don't really have anything to say other than this is wild. Like it's just.
Yeah, it makes me just want to not engage in any sort of productive dialogue because it goes from being productive to this. When you want to speak on the music business, a lot of times the conversation often degrades, and that's just a matter of a law of averages, I guess. If your platform is big enough, or if your conversation becomes big enough to include hundreds of people, the majority of them are going to say some stupid shit. But also, and I don't want to bring this up on the podcast. Maybe I'll make a separate video about it if I should at all. A lot of content that I create about the music business devolves into that kind of back and forth pseudo dialogue where it's just people with terrible ideas that run counter to anything factual or established. Just idea. It's like, having a debate on a college campus stage and 100 people just rush the stage and start urinating. That's what it feels like trying to have a conversation about the music business on a public platform.
If you think it's okay to just take people's stuff and do whatever you want, then I don't want to see you complaining about anything. I don't want to see you complaining about labels and the deals that they're offering artists. I don't want to see you complaining about shady management and, managers taking advantage of anybody. I don't want to see you complain about shit. It should just be a free for all. You get it however you can. You step on whoever you can. Like, I don't understand how you can make any complaint about anything if you think it's just okay to just take people's stuff and record whatever you want over it and then monetize it. Like, it was crazy. Like, why?
Cognitive dissonance. You're either absolutely delusional, or you have, what I'm saying? Or you've never made, and that's what I think it is. I think the vast majority of these people have never made money off of music, because even for me, back in like the LimeWire days, I started having an issue because I was downloading hella shit. And then I started working in the music industry, like right at the end of the LimeWire era. And people would be like, oh, I'm about to go download this, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go to Target and get it. And people would be like, are you for real? And I'm like, yeah, because I think once I get to this position, I'm not gonna want people doing what I'm doing. And I would tell my friends that, and they thought I was crazy, but that's how I actually found Napster before it was what it is, you know, and it was streaming. I found Napster because I was trying to find a place to stream music that didn't take people, you know what I'm saying? So I think it's like once you really understand what you're getting into, either you're going to change your thought process, or like you said, Dane, you shouldn't complain about shit. Like you have no room to complain about any injustice or difficulty if you're willing to steal people's intellectual property and utilize it for your own benefit.
Yeah, I definitely downloaded a lot of stuff in the LimeWire Napster days. I felt bad. I don't know if I felt bad about it, but it's like I needed to get those remixes. I needed to find those remixes.
Yeah, well, and I also think the case could be made that, you know, if a person is sampling one, that's just kind of how this music is made, and it was out of necessity, and it became the artistic process, and you know, it's a work, a new work being created. It's not taking something as is and then monetizing it. That's another debate, you know, kind of the morality of sampling, which I think is interesting because, you know, labels own the majority of that anyway. So labels and publishers. So it's not really necessarily affecting all artists the way people think it is. I don't know. I think it's an interesting conversation that maybe we can have at some point. I don't know. But right now, all that aside, I don't know why I'm surprised, but some of the just the blatant, like Dan was saying, the blatant, I want it to be this way, so it should be this way kind of energy that you see in response to these kinds of controversies is just wild.
Yeah, yeah, I don't even know. Yeah, like you said, I don't even know what to say to people that have that attitude, because I feel like there's really no coming back. They're gonna do what they do, right? They're gonna do what they do, and you know, I don't really think there's any bringing those folks back. Hopefully, we could just reach the folks that, you know, that have some sense and that have some kind of a common sense. That's all I got. I don't know.
All right. Well, on that note, speaking of common sense, join the Excellence Academy, the excellenceacademy.biz, and we'll be back same time, same place on the next MEC podcast. I gotta hit the record button. That was awkward.